Yes, and we are live. That's great. All right, welcome everyone. We are in webinar 10. Yes, and we're dealing with South Africans migrating to New Zealand as a group, and we're presenting them with information that they request. So you guys request, and we follow along with the kind of information that you want. So, and today we're going to focus on schools, the school system, not only, but the special guest I have is going to focus on schools. We've got, besides the site, we should just mention that Shane is the admin, Yvonne is doing Tetra Wheels, Don Heddy is doing the Coach to Success on the CVs and interview coaching. Cliff is coming in sometimes with his knowledge, as he calls it. He's an encyclopedia of useless knowledge, but he's a lot of fun and people do appreciate his posts. Rory, unfortunately, still not here till middle of January. Middle of September. What year am I on? So, and I'm here as well. I've got to host this, MC it, whatever you want to call it. And basically, I try to make it so that other people are running, most of the shows. So we've got, the chat room is open. You can ask your questions to anyone, and you can ask to them privately. You can ask them openly to everyone. If it's open, your name will be mentioned. If it's private, your name won't be. And so I guess what we have today is the person that I'm bringing on today. All right, so I know this person very well. I love her. She's my daughter. She's 18-year-old Sasha. Sasha came from Russia with me in 2007. We immigrated to New Zealand to find the best place we could find for the family, for our future, for settling down. We weren't satisfied with living in a city of 15 million, especially Russia. And I love Russia. I love Russians, and I love everything about Russia. The culture, everything is beautiful, fantastic, had a great experience. It's just not the place to bring up a family. And it's not just Russia being a foreigner, which is case one. Case two, topic two is also being in a city of 15 million. I wouldn't want to be in a city of 1 million to bring up a family. So 15's above and beyond. So we decided to come to New Zealand after looking at a global map and after studying statistics for a couple of years, actually. And then in 2005, we came and did our LSD trip, look, see, decide. And we decided from about, I think this first week or second week, we pretty much decided that's it. We don't need to look anymore. We're just going to do it. This first guess was right. We threw the dart. Let's try that one, and boom, it was dead right after looking at the statistics. So coming over here was a challenge, not just for me, finding work and immigrating in. It was also a challenge for the children, and sometimes we forget about all the details that happen in a move in migrating because there's too much and we have to focus on the essentials, and there's so many details. But the children do have to adjust to a new life, new students, new language often, in which case Sasha did have to adjust to language proficiency. So let's put it like that. She did speak English. I spoke it at home, but I was the only contact she had, or the main one, besides Elmo, that spoke English. Elmo, the cartoon, the puppet, on the anyway. So the transition to come here is interesting. I won't spoil anything, but I'll tell you that Sasha is graduating now from high school. She's 18. She came when she was 6, not knowing a lot of English, and she has a story about primary, intermediate, and high school. And she'll let you know she wants to be a communications major. So she's did a little bit, in my opinion, did a little bit of practice here to prepare something for you with 16 categories. So you can ask, it'll be rather comprehensive from one person's point of view, going through the whole process, specifically for children, but also for adults. So this should be quite interesting. I have also many clients that have come to me this week with success. They've gotten their job offers, and I'll be getting a couple of success interviews coming through. The biggest story that happened to me on this week was someone who will be making himself public later. I won't do it now. but he's an IT top level guy dealing with, you know, the executive level on a large company. And he's in IT, which I've been talking about here, the challenges of being an IT. First, IT is sensitive. If you're a foreigner, it's not the first thing New Zealanders want to do is give the keys to the sensitive data and the systems and the knowledge that it takes to, you know, make all those things happen that are very specific. Each company has its own specifics. So that's barrier number one. Barrier number two, IT is you know, everyone who's an IT person, they have specific things about their IT capabilities. There's different languages and ways to implement things and specializations. It's not just like you say, oh, I need an IT guy. It's never like that. You need a specific kind of an IT guy to adjust to your system. There's going to be a learning curve, and all of these things create complications in the mind of the employer when the employer is looking to find a fit in IT. And their first choice is generally not a foreigner. It is a struggle. But here's one more barrier I had. This gentleman, he loved the video CV. He loved the idea of bringing out his best on a video CV. But what he didn't like, and he didn't tell me at first, he didn't like my method of engaging the employers. He thought, oh, I'm not sure if that's really going to work. Well, it did work, and he got employed not just within a couple of weeks, but from South Africa. And that blows me away because I'm someone who's always looking at, you know, how to maximize your chances in order to, you know, be hired. But he was hired from South Africa. It's a fantastic story. I'll be letting you know about that later, but that's just a teaser for a future video. I think what we have now, if I could introduce Dawn. Dawn is, of course, dealing with interviews and with coaching and with video and with CVs. So Dawn, hi, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well indeed.
Very good. It's good to see you here.
Thank you.
You have yes. What do you have to share with us today?
I have a little uplifting story, and it's quite short. But before I start, just to say, I had a little chat with Rory today, and he sends everyone his best regards.
Thank you.
Okay, so I started working with his family in South Africa earlier on in the year. So father is a car mechanic, qualified, and mum an office administrator. So I did the CVs and worked with them, and it was decided that Dad would come over to New Zealand, and we worked together with a plan of action for him, and he got his job offer, which was fantastic. So he put in for his visa, and everything happened very quickly for him, and he was at work before we knew it, which left his wife back in South Africa with the family, and she would have to pack up the home, as often happens. She would have to pack up the home, and so I got talking with her quite a few times, and you know, often quite late at night, and she would just tell me, you know, how long will it be for my, you know, I was like, oh, I'm waiting for my visa. She was desperate for her visa to come, and it actually took a lot more time than her husband's, and the prospect of selling things and packing up, you know, was quite daunting. So I would listen to her and try and support where I could. So anyway, finally visa came, yay, happy, and with the help of family and friends, got everything sorted. And I said to her, look, when you get on the other side and you feel ready, she was actually coming to my town. I forgot to say that. She was actually coming to my town. Give me a shout, and we'll chat and have a coffee, and you know, sort out a plan of action for you. So quite a bit of time went by, and I met up with her probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and we had a coffee. It was wonderful to see her in the flesh, so to speak. And yeah, we talked about a plan of action, and she'd already got her CV, had already done that, and off she went. Anyway, I heard some good news this past week that she'd been offered a job as an administration person within an accountancy practice, and she was delighted, and I'm delighted, and it's such a pleasure to work with people almost from the start, and sort of walk with them on their journey, you know, and be that person who will listen sometimes as well. Just when somebody wants to do is just talk about, you know, how they feel, that they don't necessarily need much more than that. And having been through the immigration process myself, having left my family and friends, you know, I have empathy and can understand. So a lovely, lovely story with a fantastic ending. I just wanted to share that, really.
Thank you, Dawn. That is an interesting way to look at this profession that you have, isn't it? I mean, it's not corporate. You're able to have friends with clients and empathize and help them out more than just simply about a business. It's a lifestyle business.
Absolutely. And, you know, I'm very proud to offer that. And I say to people, look, when I give you your documents, that's not where it ends. You know, if you want to make contact with me, if you want to run something by me, or you just want to talk, you know, I'm available. And it's a lovely part of my role.
Because you're the genuine deal, Dawn.
Oh, well, I enjoy it. I genuinely enjoy working with people in that way. Yeah, it's important to me.
What was your last job like before this? Do you recall, yes, or do you want to say?
Yeah, so I worked for a government agency, and I worked with single parents receiving the benefit. And so the government had got this scheme where they employed people with certain skills. So they employed me to work with them to overcome the barriers of being a single parent, and there are many. And I really enjoyed that job too, because that was a walk alongside job with people. And I think all the roles I've ever had have been working closely with people, and I've never found it easy just to give a service and walk away. You know, I've never found it easy. So that was a really rewarding job as well, seeing single parents, and for whatever the reason they found themselves in that position, joining the workforce, and we'd look to find ways to overcome the barriers that had previously stopped them.
I see. Okay. Thanks, Dawn. I guess we'll go on to the next story over at Yvonne has something to share as well.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's good to see you here, Dawn, and I'm just trying to bring this thing up there. Do you see that? Oh. There we go.
Thank you.
That's Dawn. All right, fantastic. So there you are, Dawn in the flesh, the one who follows you and won't stop following you. No, I'm just kidding. The one who cares enough to allow an open door policy.
Thank you.
Take care, Dawn. Good to have you here again.
Thanks.
So I'll bring on Yvonne now. Yvonne is, of course, she's in Auckland or nearby Auckland. Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, Tate. Yes, so I live 4 hours outside of Auckland in Taupo, Waikato region. Beautiful by the lake, especially we had a beautiful day today for our first spring day. No wind for a change and no rain.
Okay, great. Yvonne, are you able to see your internet?
Yes, I am.
Okay, there you are. Do you see that? There's Yvonne's promo.
Thank you. I see that.
All right. So Yvonne, you're doing the rentals, you're doing the finances, and you're doing basically other supportive things when people come through the area there, which includes Auckland and the surrounding area. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's 100%. And something that's become another great need, it seems, is also helping people buy cars. I do that as well. I mean, of course, nobody wants to commit to a vehicle before you viewed it, which I wouldn't recommend to anybody anyway. So I help with that as well. I just get them like 2 or 3 choices, and quite honestly, about 95% all pretty much know the car that they would like, and they've got a very short time period, really just a day to 3 days, to finalize the car so they can head off to their destination where they'll be settling with their family. So and with that, as I've always said before, comes a whole lot of other questions. Could I recommend schooling, accommodation, and just help, because of course people know that I've been here for, I mean, it's now almost 15 months.
Yeah.
And with having 4 children, I've obviously gone through quite a few of the school options and things that people show interest in, that's of course of concern before coming over here to New Zealand. It's something that people actively research as well.
Well, should we hear a couple of stories that you have about that process that you've been through with the children in schools and so on?
Yeah, so I think, if you have children, finding a good school and getting them settled is, of course, one of the main priorities, especially when you come over. Everyone's always very concerned of how long are their children going to be out of school for, how unsettling is that going to be for them. And I had that as well. Of course, you want to get back into the routine as soon as possible. And with doing that, it's definitely recommended to go look at the schools and bear in mind that they are very zoned. So you're going to have to choose a home around the school that you want, ideally, if you got fixed on that school. Most of the schools are very closely zoned, which, South Africa is not far off that. I stayed in Cape Town, and there as well, we had very small zones. So it wasn't something I wasn't familiar with. And here you, of course, get different religion schools like the Catholic, the Montessori, and private, and those aren't zoned. So that's an option for people who could not get a home in the area where you'd like your children to go to school. That's how I had to start out as well. And funny enough, I actually had to move and change my children's school. So I had a pretty much good idea of having to find the right area for the right school. And here the schools are pretty much rated. Everyone says to me, oh my gosh, how do we choose the school? There's so many schools to choose from, especially up in Auckland. Down where I am in Taupo, we've only got about 3 or 4 schools to choose from. Auckland, of course, there it's just every area has so many different schools. So New Zealand, as I explained to everybody, uses a decal rating. So 10 supposedly being the highest and 1 being the lowest. So it's really just a reflection of the community the school serves, not really a measure of the school's quality, which is important to remember. And I always say, don't choose a school before you come here. When you're here, go look at the school, go during school time so you can see the interaction with the children and the teachers. That's, of course, important. I've got 3 of my children are in school. 1 is in kindy and the other 2 are in primary school. And I looked probably, honestly, at about 10 different kindies before choosing one. Just because every family, I suppose, has different needs, different expectations as well. And something really, I think probably every second mom asks me, is there bullying in New Zealand? And the answer to that, sadly, is yes. I don't think there's anywhere in the world where you don't get a child that is bullied in some school. The statistic at the moment is actually 94% of teachers that were interviewed in New Zealand said that there is bullying in their school. And both of my children in primary school have been bullied, and the other one was also bullied in South Africa. But what makes the difference here is how the school handled it. It's really, when they say they've got a 0 tolerance to bullying, it's that they mean it. They handle it really well. And something I've observed as well is the children that do the bullying often have something going on at home. And strange enough, this week, my 5-year-old, well, actually, he's been going through bullying for the last 3-4 weeks. And the recent child this week is actually a fellow South African child. And he's new here and he's struggling to adjust and, find himself. And of course, when I found that out, I sort of softened a bit to understand that, he's going through a lot himself and he's trying to find his place. And by doing that, he is taking you know, a stand and trying to be, you know, a show off and stronger to the other children. And the school called a meeting with the parents, and we all sat together and discussed what was going on, and they really dealt with it well. And being the sort of overprotective mom that I am, I went into the schools during break time to check that, you know, they really were doing what they said they were doing during lunch break, watching that everything was okay for the time that they said. I mean, of course, it's a big school. There's a few hundred children in it. They cannot watch my children all the time. But during that time where they're supposed to be watching and making sure everything's okay, that really is what they're doing in a very caring, a loving way with constant feedback. Where I can honestly say in South Africa, we did not have that. I'm not saying the whole of South Africa is like that. That's just my experience. And that really, that is what makes a difference to my child still wanting to go back to school the next day, is how it was handled. And that is the memory that they're going to remember for the rest of their life, is how did the teacher respond, the principal, and of course, mom and dad at home.
Right. The nature of the bullying, do you want to talk about that, or would you prefer not to?
Yeah, so my eldest has a bit of a learning disability, such to speak, ADHD, with a couple of other things. And I often get asked as well, how do children get accepted into school in New Zealand if they are like a slow learner, or, you know, ADHD, in the case where my son actually had to repeat his year of school here in New Zealand. And that was very daunting. He'd only been in school for 3 months here in New Zealand, and we got told he had to spend a year back, which I don't think that's good, something you want to hear at any given time, especially when you're a new migrant in a country still busy settling in. And they called us in a few times and explained to us why, and I pretty much expected it. And immigrating had nothing to do with it. That's not what put him back. In South Africa, he was already diagnosed with what he had. And they started to, you know, exclude him during break time. And something else that happened here with the school was, if they didn't have the in toys, the children would exclude them. I suppose that's all over the world as well. That's just children. I mean, you know, the saying, children are mean, children are ugly. They have no brakes on their mouths at times. That's just the way that it is. And he started, there was a child, I think a year or two older than him, who found out that he was repeating his year, and he started getting physical, throwing his lunch out. And my son didn't say anything. I started to notice a change in behavior over a week or two, where he didn't really want to talk about what happened at school anymore. And eventually, I mean, there's a very fine way to, I suppose, get it out of the children. Not every child's just going to say it. I think they feel a bit ashamed, a bit embarrassed. And especially with him knowing he has, you know, he is aware he has a learning disability. He's only 9. I went into the principal's office. We had a bit of a meeting, and they said they're going to keep an eye on it, and they witnessed it themselves. He came home with a blue eye, and that is when I took it very seriously. And we went into the school, and the child was suspended for, it was 2 weeks. And there again, the child had problems at home. And it happened one more time with another child who pretty much did exactly the same thing. And it was all to do with them making fun of him repeating his year. And that is children. And he repeated a year in South Africa, and we had the same thing. But again, I say it was how it was handled here. And especially his teacher. The teachers are just, they're so aware and alert to what's happening. Once you obviously, I mean, they can't sit there and watch all the children all the time. But once you raise an issue, they're pretty hands-on. And my 5-year-old, who just went through this now the last 3 weeks, as I said, the most recent one this week was South African that migrated here as well. And he was really struggling. He actually also has a bit of a learning disability. And he again came home with a blue eye and a scratch underneath his eye. And on that day, Daddy fetched the children from school. So Daddy hadn't really been exposed to it before because he's always working. And he immediately phoned me. He was very upset, contacted the principal, and they reassured us, of course. They actually contacted the parents that afternoon already. It was already after school at 3, and made them aware of what had just happened, and that they were meeting with everybody the next day. But again, with the 5-year-old, the people that bullied him before were not South African. They were Kiwis here, and they were just, pushing him the whole time, kicking him, tripping him, throwing his bag around. So I suppose not extreme stuff, but I noticed a change in his behavior there as well, where I said to him, how was your day at school? And he's like, oh, I don't really want to talk about it. And I can't, you don't approach them and say, oh, well, you need to tell me what happened. Did something happen? It's a gradual process over a few days to get it out of the children. So I'm hoping for a good week ahead. I think it will be. The child apologized, and and they're going to keep an eye on him. I mean, more than that, we can't really do. I mean, they're well aware when you drop your children off that it's their responsibility to ensure that they are safe. And that brings me to the topic as well of how New Zealand deals with children with learning disabilities. And in my experience, it's great. Everything is offered at school, especially for, like, you get something offered to you if your child needs a teacher aid. So a teacher will come in during class, an additional teacher or assistant, and they spend more one-on-one with your child to help them develop and grow in the area where they are lacking. For example, my child is writing and maths, which are crucial things. So he has a lot of extra time spent during class. It's not something I've got to pay for. That is provided for him. He takes medication to help with his concentration, and I don't pay for that either. Regular pediatric appointments, and you're just testing and stuff, and it's all covered. So all in all, I can say that New Zealand's very good with that.
Thanks for sharing. The 5-year-old is too recent, so you can't say how that will turn out. You think it's going to turn out fine. The previous one has been settled, and you mentioned that your older child, the feeling for school is positive now?
Yes, for both of them. And I must say, even through all of this, not once did they say we don't want to go to school tomorrow. It's almost like they believe that they knew it will be sorted out. There wasn't that whole, no, we're not going, we're scared, it's great.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Yvonne. I'm glad you got it on track there. And that's good information for anyone else who comes here to know there is the possibility of something happening like that, but there's also a recourse that works, and that's important to know.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's unrealistic to think, which I say to everybody coming to New Zealand, that there's no problems here. Of course there are. It's a normal functioning country. There are going to be issues, but there's ways to deal with it and go forward as well. And I mean, in school, that's just one of those things. And I mean, having to adjust and settle on its own is a big enough worry. So my whole thing is, I say, there's no such thing really as starting over in life. What you're really doing is you're using your past experiences and you're recreating yourself and making new memories, and finding your feet again is really what you're doing. And like this obviously being Father's Day today, of course, you think back, you've got family in South Africa, like my husband's dad's still there, of course, and every other year we've been with him for Father's Day. And, days like today, you do get a bit sad. And you just have to remember the reasons as to why you wanted to come here, and, everything that you've gained from being here. And I actually read a thing, my husband and I were looking online, and it showed that it peaks your, like, what do they call it, I suppose, immigration, stress, depression, peaks really from about 18 months. And that's really once you think you're quite settled. And everybody's got different approaches to coming over. I mean, some people come over very organized before they leave, where others really just plan as they go. Which I suppose makes what I do so exciting, because I'm dealing with different situations all the time. And I'm sure you and Dawn experience exactly the same thing. I actually also chatted to Rory today, and that's exactly, I mean, not everybody approaches immigrating the same way. And when you arrive, you feel excited. Everything's so different. It's new, it's fun. And there are like times where if you have a bad experience, of course, you're going to get a fright. Living in another country is perhaps not as easy as what you thought. You may experience that life back home is going on without you, and you're missing out on important family milestones, which is like today. You feel down, you're in a low mood, and you feel very homesick. And sometimes that might not happen for the first few months or even years, but when it does happen, you question whether you should go back to your old life or whether you should continue working on your new one. And those are two questions that even though people aren't here, they ask me, like, have you had down moments? What do you do? And the answer to that is yes. I mean, immigrating is awesome. It's exciting, but there are moments which are down and low, and you need to embrace them as well. Which is pretty much, I say, the final stage of settling in, when you start to fit in with your new surroundings and you start to feel at home in New Zealand. And that does come. You just got to persevere. And I can say that from real experience, I have just gone through that. And I think it's pretty much to do with my baby having his first, we had just like having 4 children, just had a few birthdays all in a row, especially my baby's first birthday, where no one back home in South Africa has even met baby. And that's sad. I would lie if I say I was not sad about it. But we made the most of what we had here. We Skyped with family back home. And after Skyping with family, you sort of, that little emptiness in your heart feels a bit whole again. You've got to see their faces, laugh, and there's some interaction. And you realize, geez, what did people do like 20 years ago when that wasn't around? So
you embraced the full package, Yvonne. Congratulations. The pluses, the minuses, overwhelmingly pluses, I'm guessing.
Yes, definitely. And that was what I expected, and what I tell everyone as well. Be prepared for these moments because they are real. Someone said to me, immigrating puts a whole lot of strain on your marriage and your family life. And of course it does, but you just need to keep looking at the positive things. And like I often go read on the groups, everybody's positive stories and how motivating and positive people are. And you really just have to thrive on that.
Thanks for sharing, Yvonne. That was a fantastic story.
Thanks, Tate.
So that was Yvonne. She's got Tetra Wheels. She's out there 4 hours from Auckland in Taupo. Is that right?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's Taupo, yeah.
Take care. Bye-bye. So now we've got the experiences of Sasha, 18 years old, finishing high school, came at 6 years old. English was a second language, and the experiences that a young person has who grew up through primary, through intermediate, and through high school, I think is quite interesting. I look forward to this. I'll probably learn something new.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Sasha. As you said, I'm 18, just turned 18, and going to be graduating this year. So I'm on year 13 at high school. Pretty much I've just got like 15 things I thought people might wonder about that I could just answer pretty much. There's education structure. So pretty much preschool, like kindy, 3 to 5 years old, probably the same in most countries. Then primary, you start school when you're 5 and you go into year 1. I started when I was 6, so I actually missed year 1 and went straight into year 2. What I remember from that is going into reading, because I really could not read at all. And I was put into the lowest reading group with one other boy, and there was like groups slightly better, and then like really good readers. And yeah, from what I remember, the teachers were really good with letting you work to your own ability and progress in your own time by splitting everyone up, not just teaching everyone together. And yeah, and by the end of the year, I was in the top group actually, which I was quite proud about. Yeah, it had little cute names like penguins and owls and things like that. It wasn't just like worst to best kind of group names. Yeah, and in primary also I remember doing creative writing, doing like little recounts about the weekends and things like that. Arts, learning to do paper mache and painting. I remember we had to draw one of our teachers once. Swimming's a really big part of school. Pretty much all kids know how to swim. You don't really get taught how to swim at school, like you're kind of expected to know. So I was new to that, so I had to take some extra swimming lessons outside of school. Yeah, from primary I also remember that teachers were encouraging kids to mix with all kind of kids, I guess. I remember I had a few friends who were Down syndrome in primary, and it was really like good thinking back on it, how teachers were encouraging everyone to be inclusive of each other. Yeah, and teachers, yeah, as Yvonne said, they really do care, and they make sure that that you're okay and that they do help. I remember they'd even make sure that we're eating enough at lunchtime. You had to show them your lunchbox before you leave the eating area to see if you've eaten enough. Yeah, so that's experience with primary has been good, I think. Intermediate, so you go into intermediate, you're about 11 years old. That's for 2 years, so you're year 7 and year 8. And that starts to be a bit more preparing you for high school. So it, yeah, the structure is more like high school. So you have 5 classes a day. They're a bit more, make you a bit more punctual, kind of give you homework, although I don't really remember doing homework that much. I don't think it's like a big priority to do. I think it's quite optional. Like I know a lot of my friends do a lot of homework, but I somehow get away with not doing that much. And then high school, yeah, start when you're 13. You go into year 9. It goes up to year 13. Year 9 and 10 are juniors. Year 11, 12, 13 are seniors. And yeah, when you're year 9, you have set subjects that you have to take. So it's English, maths, PE, science, and social studies. And then you have like 1 or 2 options that you get to choose from, things like cooking or drama, music, things like that. And yeah, the older you get, the less things you have to do, like things drop off like science, PE, and then you have more options of what you want to take. And then, yeah, they get things like graphics and things that are a bit more specific to a job as you get older. With Yvonne touched on this with disability, kids with disabilities, all kinds of disabilities, like they have a lot of options with classes in high school. Like they have, obviously they do take classes with everyone else, like English and things like that. But they also have other classes. There's a class called World where they just learn about like cultures and foods and things like that. And they still can do assignments on it and, yeah, pass or fail. And, yeah, so I think it's really inclusive of everyone all the time. And there's always help offered at school as well. We have about 5 counsellors at our school, and I think they're always really like busy. They're obviously free and you can go any time of the day that you want. And yeah, see them. There's support groups as well, like LGBT groups and anti-bullying groups. And yeah, so that's my education structure point. Public and private schools. So I went to a public primary school and a public high school. I went to a private intermediate, and yeah, pretty much I guess it's up to what people want to do. Private is obviously you have to pay for, whereas yeah, public is free. You can do school donations as well. They're like $250. That's kind of expected almost. And you pay for your own stationery and things like that, sports trips and that kind of stuff. School zones. So in big cities like Auckland, if you live in a certain area, you have to go to a school in that area. And that's, yeah, determined by the decile rating of the area and the school that you go to. But you can find all of that online through the schools and what their ratings are. And yeah, some places like smaller cities like here, and you can go to any school that you want if it's not in your area, because it doesn't really matter. I guess it's like a smaller city. That's probably why. Girls and boys schools. So I went to a girls' high school, and personally I enjoyed it. Don't know if it was because it was a girls' school or because I just had good friends. I don't think one is better than the other. I think it just really is like a personal a preference. I had friends that left girls' college and they moved to a mixed school and they had a much better time there. I have friends that moved from the mixed school to girls' college and now they're having a much better time here. So, yeah, there's been a lot of movement, but by year 13, I think everyone's quite like settled where they are. Yes, special aid, I guess I kind of touched on that, but there's teachers, special teachers that help out kids that I guess are a bit naughty and they don't want to work, and they have the ability to work, but they don't want to. So they even have special teachers that come around and sit next to them, make sure they're writing the essay and things like that. There's also translators for kids that can't speak at all if they come from other countries. And then there's, like people that work with kids with like mental disabilities and things, and they follow them through classes and help them understand tasks and things like that. School terms, so it's 10-week terms. There's 4 of them. As one term happens, then there's a 2-week holiday, another term, 2-week holiday, another term, 2-week holiday. I don't know how many I said. And then the 4th one, and it's the 6-week summer holidays at the end of that. For seniors in high school, they finish in November because they go on exam leave. And so you have your leave and then you go into your exams and you do your exams. A school day is pretty much, you have 5 periods, so 5 different classes. I'm not sure if other schools are different, but I know my school has period 1, period 2, then we have an interval of 25 minutes, period 3, period 4, lunch, which is about an hour long, and period 5 at the end. And school finishes around 3:15 or 3. Food wise to bring, I think most schools you bring your own food. I think there might be some that do school lunches, but I've always brought my own, so something for interval, something for lunch. Sun hats are really important in primary. You're not allowed to leave the classroom if you don't have your sun hat, otherwise you have to sit inside. There's also sunblock always available for kids playing outside. Uniform, so there's schools that have uniform, schools that don't, schools that are half, so you just wear like a t-shirt, a school t-shirt and whatever you want. Uniforms can be quite expensive, but there's secondhand options, and there is like financial aids as well that schools can help out with. Buses, they pretty much, I think they go pretty much everywhere. I know a girl that's lives about an hour and a half from school, and she catches like 3 different buses to get to school every day, but she makes it every day and she makes it home. Some are free. I know the one that I caught was free, but I think most buses you have to get a bus card that you pay for, I think like $30, and you get stamps every time you go on the bus. Extracurricular activities are really popular, especially in primary. Like kids are doing 3, 4, 5 different things after school. Swimming is a big one, because especially when you're younger, to learn how to swim. Then like music, joining bands, drama, all kinds of dance, cadets sort of thing. I know it was called Penguins when I did it, and it was just learning little marches and things like that. And then art. In high school, there's a lot of groups, so you join like enviro groups, and they organise like climate strikes and things like that. And then like student council and things like that also get quite popular as you get older. Medical and dental. So dental care is free for kids up to 18 years old. So you get a yearly checkup, and then if you need something, a filling or something, then that's all free until you're 18. I know some schools have a dentist that comes in and they just check kids one by one, so they don't have to actually go to a dentist to get them checked. Otherwise, yeah, doctors do cost like $30 an appointment. I'm guessing depending what it is. As you get older, if you want extensions for homework and projects at school, you have to get a medical certificate for it to actually be processed as an extension. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know, it's just a process that you have to do. So you go to your doctor and they pretty much say, like, yeah, she has been sick and she needs this time for her schoolwork. Yeah, and my last point is pretty much focusing on year 13 and what's been happening. I've noticed that I used to think, looking up at the year 13s, that they all know what they want to do with their lives and who they want to be, and like they're old and smart, but they're not at all. And like no one really knows what they want to do. Like even at this point in September, people aren't 100% sure on what they want to do. But high school does offer a lot of uni information. Like we have a lot of people from unis visiting and talking about courses, handing out like pamphlets. They explain things about the halls and the student loans. And so the information is all there. A lot of people also encourage gap years. I know a lot of friends that travelled or some that just didn't know what to do. They stayed here and they saved money by working, or others, yeah, just had a gap year or 2 or 3 because they just weren't quite sure what they needed to do. For people that do want to go to university and they do know straight away, they of course have to get university entrance in year 13, and that's pretty much you have to pass 3 subjects, over 14 credits, and doesn't matter how you pass them, just as long as you get the 14 credits. Then you have your literacy and your numeracy from like year 11 and year 12, which is quite easy to have. And yeah, that's your university entrance. Of course, some university courses you need other things, like you've had to take in physics or maths as a subject, but others you don't really need any pre-requirements. And scholarships is the last thing. There's a lot of scholarships available for universities, varying between $5,000 and about $40,000 that you could get. And they cover a lot of bases. There's like this one scholarship I heard about that's for people with like mental disabilities, I guess, and so that counts as like girls or guys that have gone through depression or anxiety and things. Like that's a special scholarship for them. And then yeah, there's just a lot of options with scholarships, and it's like really easy to apply for, and schools do give you a lot of information on how to do things. And yeah, so I think they're quite good with setting you up for the future, in primary for intermediate for high school for after. And that's probably what I've taken away from school the most, and that everyone cares about each other, especially the teachers. They care about you. Yeah, that's me.
Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, yeah. All right, so any questions from anyone? You can type it out, or you can raise your hand and I'll let you speak just here. I did have a memory of going to the girls' school with Sasha, and these girls were coming to introduce themselves to the parents walking into the school. And I thought, wow, I mean, and they actually had a coherent thing to say and to point things out, and they were very helpful with pamphlets, and I thought that was really cool. And we were going to show Sasha like 3 schools. I think we had 3 that we were going to show. We made it to the first one, the one that she's in, and she said, no, this is good. We just decided to stay. So that was just an interesting story I thought I would throw out there. Do you remember what that was like, why you decided to stay? What was your impression?
I don't know. I can't really think of a particular reason. I know a lot of friends that like that's what mattered for me, is because a lot of friends were going to this school, but also I think it was just a nice, tidy looking school, and how everyone presented themselves was really like friendly and just seemed like a good atmosphere. I just kind of felt for it, I guess.
And the other memory I've got that I think stands out apart as far as New Zealand being a different place, They teach the haka to everyone. I mean, basically, you always have a chance to learn the haka if you want to and participate, right? It's the same one that you see in the rugby, exactly the same one.
Yeah.
It's quite cool, I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, that is quite cool. And I remember in primary, there was this girl, you probably saw her, she like, had really blonde hair, and she was like the girl that would like lead the haka like in front of all the boys and everything. And like, yeah, it was just really cool to see that.
So this brings to light also the cross-cultural influence and encouragement that is often, you know, it's basically that's the way, that's the only way. I mean, you get along with everyone. Everyone goes through the school. Everyone graduates if they want to. It doesn't matter, you know, who they are or and as far as learning, and it doesn't matter, like the culture is accepted. And that's very much part of the New Zealand culture, is that every culture is appreciated and accepted, and that's the default. And that's how you have to think. I mean, basically, it's like in your another idea I just had. When we came to your primary school, Mrs. What was her name?
Which primary school?
The first one. The first one.
Mrs.
Booth. Oh yeah,
yeah.
Mrs. Booth. Right. She used to sit people around on the floor.
Mm.
That was quite different.
Yeah, we actually still do that in high school. We have this class that we've just started testing out, and it's a mix of all year groups. So it has 3 from year 9, 3 from year 10, 3 year 11, and so onwards. And it's just like half an hour of just kind of hanging out together sort of thing. And yeah, and we do sit in a circle on Mondays. We talk about highlights of weekends and lowlights and what's worrying us and things like that, which is quite, quite interesting to see what they're testing out doing in school.
So we have a couple of questions. Firstly, thanks, Dawn. You said to everyone. Thanks, Sasha. Very informative. My sons have been through high school, and what you're saying is really well put. So well done. On her way to being a communications major already. Okay. And then we have a private question from someone who asks if Sasha could explain more about the decile score in schools. What is your take on that from your point of view? What's that about?
Well, from what I know, it's the like social economic like ranking. So it's on the community and that's around the school, and it gives a number that they can put on the school from I guess what it's trying to say, from bad to good, kind of 1 to 10. But yeah, I don't know. I guess you'd want to be in a school maybe above like 5.
Average, I don't know. You just between you and I on public internet, coming from abroad and then going into a school with a very low decile rating can put your kids in contact with children who are from alcohol families and abusive families and things like that. Not saying it doesn't exist everywhere. It does. There's different things exist in different places, yes, but there will be just bigger numbers of that, and it goes to the funding and so on. So yeah, it's probably not entirely PC to say, but I mean, that's the reality of it, according to many people that have told me about that. So you want to just visit the school. I think it goes back to what Yvonne said. Don't cross anything off the list, but you want to visit the school and get a feeling for it, because your gut feeling is probably going to be right. Another thing I remember is the swimming lessons. Like they would say swimming lessons like are mandatory, and it's actually cold for me with a jacket, and they have to be swimming. So I thought that was quite odd, because they're so health and safety conscious, but at the same time, you have to go swimming in the cold.
Yeah.
So Sunny says, oops, no, never mind. Yvonne says, my kids are in decile 9, very happy. First school was decile 3 and moved. Okay, well, there you go. All learning curves again. All right. And then someone says, our son is 7, will go straight into the age group where he was tested to see where he's at.
Has a question. Will he go straight into his age group, or he just... no, if he's 7, he'll go into the age group, not academically, especially in primary, because it's such big variety in the ages of people's abilities. So they don't just put the abilities in separate classes, they put the ages in classes together, and then they work with that, how I said with my reading group, that she would work with us who couldn't read as well, work with us more, and there'd be kids that are reading like almost like chapter books because they're that good at reading. So yeah, he'll just go into an age group and he'll just progress from there. 7, he'll probably go into year 3 at school. Yeah.
So I guess the real effort is that everyone's gonna be fine in the school in the level that their age is, and then if it's seen better over time, they just test it out, and whatever's better for the child, they'll make a decision later. At least that's the idea.
Mm.
Do you have any bullying stories?
Not really. I don't know. I must have been really lucky, not really personally, but that I've been around a lot of it. Obviously, hearing from what's happened to people, or even, at school, I remember there was a girl that stood up in front of the whole school and she told everyone about what's been happening to her during school. And a lot of us obviously had no idea that any of this was even happening. And it was quite bad it was quite bad how bad she got, really. It was become like self-harm and things like that. But what she was promoting was the help that she did get, because she personally thought the school counsellors didn't really help her, so she got a different one, like a paid one, and she said that really made the difference and it allowed her to speak. And then now she was able to speak in front of a whole school and tell them all about it, with the bullies probably sitting in the audience, and she was like, talk about it.
So Sasha's with a group of friends that have a friend who's special needs, and it's genuine friend. I mean, they go out, they're texting all the time. They're telling jokes with each other, and it's really cool to see, because I didn't see that when I was growing up in the States. I mean, public school there, I mean, forget it. It's nearly, I mean, I won't call it a prison, but it's just the feeling is uncomfortable all the time. And here, I don't get that feeling walking through. I don't get the feeling that other kids have that feeling. It's not this segregated and, trying to be cool all the time and this sort of thing.
Mm.
Yeah, thought I'd throw that out there. Thanks, Cliff, for that joke. I laughed at an inappropriate time. Someone said, "Don't mess with Sasha; she'll kick your butt." All right. My daughter will be 3 when we arrive in New Zealand. Does she need to attend church? Does it say church, crèche or school? Or can she stay with my godmother for a while?
I don't think you have to go to like kindy when you're 3.
We don't have to.
So but school you do. So when you're on your 5th birthday, you pretty much go to school, or the day after. That's when you start school. So no matter what time of year your birthday is, and so I think 3 she can stay with godmother for a while. That should be all good.
And someone else asks if it's is kindly expensive and from what age? No, is kindy expensive and from what age? Also have an 18-month-old. I
think kindy is free. Probably most of them would be, unless it's like a donation. There's I saw an advertising it said that it was a kindy one, and their poster said 30 hours free. So that's probably an hour's base that's free, and then if you need your kids to be at it for longer, then you probably pay.
So coming in as a foreigner, not a big problem. There are effective ways to manage that. Coming in and being afraid of not meeting people, that's also correct me if I'm wrong, but what maybe you can talk to that. Let's say there's someone at different ages, whatever, they're coming in and their English is not so good because they're coming from a family that speaks another language at first. So what is the experience that person will have from week 1 or month 1 or whatever it is?
Yeah, I think that the worst feeling would be right before you're about to go to school on your first day, and you're just thinking about everything, and obviously probably thinking the worst. And but I think after that day of school, you're 99% chance you'll come back really happy, because you've met a lot of people, especially if you start at the start of a year or at the start of a term. Everyone's just fresh, and teachers will make a really good effort to include all new students with students that have already been there, especially if you're older. I think they'll try harder because they know it's more scary the older you get to come into a new school, a new country. Yeah, I think it's nothing to worry about. I think most kids know that you got to be nice to people and you can't be rude to them because, I don't know, they don't speak the language or something. I think people would be good and inclusive, or they should be, and if they're not, there's always someone you can talk to about it that can help.
Here's another thing that just came to my mind, and I have probably room for one or two more questions if anyone wants to ask them. It just came to my mind how important it is for everyone to know the Maori culture, aspects of it. It's just all through, isn't it? Different parts.
Yeah, you learn like every year, and probably up until like year 10, I learned about the Treaty of Waitangi, and like learnt the same thing about how it happened and the signing the contract, and everyone will learn about that, I'm sure, when they come to school. But yeah, just things like that have happened in history that have been big. And yeah, someone just mentioned the Treaty of Waitangi is essential learning for children and adults. Yeah, like really big part of it. And then songs, you learn a lot of Maori waiatas songs, and hakas. Boys that play rugby, they do hakas before their games, like they still do. Yeah, there's just a lot of culture that gets incorporated. You learn how to count, and just using words like the menus at my work, they say kai, not food. Like kai means food in Maori, and that's just what it says on the menu. Like you'll just see little things around that are just cultural. Yeah.
Yeah. So it does permeate from school into society. Like Sean that I worked with, he would say, "Oh, how's the whānau?" It just people would do that. Family. How's the family? Whānau. Yeah. I probably pronounced it slightly wrong, but anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for this contribution that you've done here with us. And, thank you, Sasha, for this work that you've put through. This is great. Handwritten, right?
Oh, thanks for having me.
So I think this is a great thing. We have a little community here, and we're all about helping people come through, and our focus is on South Africans coming through, and we're part of this closed Facebook group that has 10,000 something, nearly 11,000 members, which is amazing. And it's great to be part of this group. I'm really glad that we're inclusive as well, following along with New Zealand culture somewhat. So yeah, I guess with that, I guess I'll sign off. We'll see you next week, same time. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.